All right. All right. I think we're live.
I think so too. What a nice
Are
little
we
clip
live? I
there
think, okay.
in the beginning. Yeah, I
Yeah, it's
see a
kind of, it's fancy, right?
little live thing. Very fancy. I'm just
Cool.
looking for the live thing
Yeah, very
here
fancy.
so I can stream it.
Okay, yeah. So just real quick, as we as thumbs are juicing up and getting things going, we are going to be live streaming this on the Ukraine Aid Ops Twitter, and so we're just waiting for that to come through. It should have already came through, to be honest. Um, let
I
me
don't see it. I'm
let
on
me
your page
know.
here. I don't see anything
Yeah, if
specifically on your Twitter.
so, yeah, just it might take a second. So it's twitter.com/run
Yep, I see it
brother
now. Yep,
underscore.
I see it
You
here.
see it? Okay.
Yep, let
So
me
so we'll
send it
be
over to them.
hitting this up to Ukraine Aid Ops. And so while Alan's doing that, I'm just gonna get things started. We have like an hour, maybe a little bit more, and we're gonna try and get as deep as possible. So let's get started. Oh, I'm excited. It's it's been we've been waiting for this for a week. So I am really glad that everybody's here, whether you're joining us live or maybe you're catching us in the replay. Really excited that you're here, and hopefully, my goal is that this is really going to enlighten a lot of people into a fully vetted 40-person staff, fully volunteered organization in Ukraine, getting the that's getting really doing God's work. We're going to get into what exactly they do. If you don't know who Ukraine Aid Ops is, we're going to get into that. We're streaming like in 7 different places right now. So what would be cool is if you're on YouTube or if you're on uh, see what else, Facebook, just let me know in the comments if you're seeing lag or anything like that. That'll be helpful to let me know, like, hey, I need to do something about that. But until seemingly everything's kind of working out okay. um so I just want to introduce myself real quick, just so that we're gonna get it for most of this, but this is gonna be Alan's show for the most part. But just to introduce myself, if you don't know who I am, my name is Vic Karanovich Beal. I was real quick just born. I was born in Kharkiv, Ukraine, during the Soviet Union. I was actually born to a family that were refugees. They're political refugees of the Soviet Union for 10 years. And that was the life that I was born into. And, when we left Ukraine, my family was stoked. They couldn't have been happier because life was so hard for them. And a lot of people have this feeling, and as one of these refugees per se, I really want to get it out of people's head that Ukraine is the Ukrainian SSR or the Soviet Ukraine, which is really more Russia than anything. This is a whole different people who want their own identity, their own country, their own nation, and they're paying a huge price for that. To not be part of the Russian puppetry, they're paying a huge price, and it's really on the world to support them during this hard time. It is very hard, and so I am very grateful to Alan. I am very grateful to Harry, and I'm very grateful to the other 40 people and all the donors that have contributed to Ukraine aid operations, because they are doing miracles. Let me tell you. And so, and we'll get into a little bit uh, momentarily. And so, one thing, I was watching. Why am I watching Russian news? But I saw a little clip from Russian news today about they're still talking about the denazification of Ukraine. So I just want to shut this denazification of Ukraine, not just from the point where I have met with Ukrainian refugees from Dinero. I met them recently here in where I live, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Nazis in Ukraine? Where?" and we have a Ukrainian, I mean, a Jewish Ukrainian president, for heaven's sake. You know, like they're just baffled by this rhetoric. But I also want to show you something real quick. I'm just going to pull up. We got this fancy presentation power going on here. And I just want to show you guys real quick. This was done 3 to 4 years ago by the Pew Research Center. And this is a map that aggregates all the research. And what you see here are all the Eastern European countries and some Southern European countries. And you're seeing how many people don't look at Jews as countrymen or citizens. So here we see Russia with almost 15%. We see Lithuania, Romania is kind of high, Poland kind of high as well. But Ukraine actually has the lowest of all of these countries. So the fact that there's this whole denazification talk doesn't, in data, make sense at all. So if anybody ever says that to you, and I've had friends come to me and say, "Hey, what about these, Nazi Ukrainians? What about this Azov battalion?" Yeah, there's some people. There's some people in America too, but show them this Pew Center map or graphic, and let them know that in Russia there are 3 times as many people that don't look at Jews as fellow countrymen, and tell them that around Ukraine there's a lot more of that kind of mentality. So I just wanted to put that out there, just to close that door, close that idea of people thinking, Azov battalion this, Azov battalion that. It's just not true. Okay, so now let's
Nope.
get back to Alan and Ukraine aid ops. I just really wanted to close that, hopefully, in everybody's lives. Okay, so let's just talk about Ukraine aid ops a little bit. How did it begin? What is it? I'm gonna let Alan speak to it, but the gist is that there's one guy from Estonia. His name is Harry, and is this correct, Alan? He has invested 40 grand of his own money. You told me
At
that.
this point, yeah, at this point, probably even more than that. So we're fully expensing out of our own pockets. That's one of the big things that we tell people: don't go into this organization, or don't come into this organization thinking you're going to get anything out of it other than the gratification of hearing a story that you saved a life or a thank you. But that's the most of what we're understanding that we're going to get back. You know what I mean? So we've all spent a decent amount of our own money on doing this. Not as much as Harry though. I mean, Harry has literally spent beyond his life savings, not beyond his life savings, but I mean like beyond what most people would spend, you know what I mean, on this, and continuing to do so, not thinking how am I going to recuperate this back, thinking how is this going to help somebody right now, and that's more important than making this money back. And that's true for a lot of people, not only in our organization, but one thing I have to say about people from the Baltic states and around Ukraine, they understand that this problem is something that can spill over to them much quicker than even to somebody who's further in Europe, or in the western part of the world like the United States or Canada or something like that, where the problem is a little bit different, and how we feel the problem here, where like I'm sitting in Florida. I have a direct tie because I have family in Ukraine. I'm of Ukrainian descent. I'm first generation born here in the U.S. To Ukrainian Jews, so I'm also of Ukrainian Jewish descent. To that point that you made earlier. But yeah, so the way that the organization started, and it's funny, the power of social media. It could be used for good. It could be used for bad. When used for good, it can bring people together and do some pretty amazing things. I never had a Twitter before the war began, but I kept looking at Ukraine war maps, like a website, you know what I mean, and live UA maps. I kept looking at that, and they kept linking stuff to Twitter, to Twitter, to Twitter, to Twitter, and I'm thinking, like, is Twitter really like the fastest place to get this information? Not even Reddit or something. So I signed up for Twitter, and I started following account after account after account after account. And I followed an account of one American who was over there fighting, and they were asking for body armor, that they needed body armor. And somebody commented on this saying, hey, like, I'm from Estonia. I got, X amount of steel plates. I can't even remember what it was in the original haul at this point. I'd have to look, but I mean, like 10,000 steel plates. And I want to donate them. And, I looked at the account, and it was kind of also a new, somewhat new account, not a lot of posts. So, I mean, I was a little skeptical, but having family there, I said, like, maybe we can figure something out. So my father-in-law, Yuri, who's also very involved with the organization, he said, look, I mean, we'll try and figure out how to get this guy into Ukraine. So I put them in contact. They worked together to get Hari across the border, which that was a whole nother journey, of him getting into Ukraine and getting to Ukraine and getting things across the border, and the process that was. This is very early on in the war, so there was not too much of a process. It was, and I can't say it was a free-for-all, because there was some kind of organization, but it was organized chaos at that point, and it took a little while to get everything through. But during that time, other people started following Hari, and the pictures that he was posting of, this Estonian guy with a truck full of steel plates that he's bringing to save lives in Ukraine. Other people
So
like,
he
hey,
was Hari. Let me just interrupt you real quick, just so people understand. Hari, when this war started, it's not like Hari had a infrastructure or anything like that, right? He was a lone man coming out of Estonia. He probably had a day job, and this war broke out. Obviously, there was some buildup to the war. It's not like it was completely sudden, but everybody knew something was in the air. A lot of people knew it was coming. Some people were in disbelief, thinking that, oh, there's no way that Russia would do something, even though they had been building up troops for months already. So how did that what was going on in Harry's head? Was it just like you said? Was it because there could be spillover? Was it because he had a Ukrainian girlfriend? Was it and then what was the you said he just loaded up a truck and drove to
so
Ukraine, basically? Is that what he
I
did?
mean, a lot of people, especially in the Baltic states, having been a part of the former Soviet Union, understanding what the Russians are capable of in terms of forced genocide and stuff like that, because there were a lot of like Holodomor was to them in Ukraine. There were
Right.
similar circumstances in the Baltic states as well, where the Russians essentially starved people into and then brought their own people into the country and Russified it. But they understood the plight of the Ukrainian people. It's, Hari almost represents the Baltic states, and especially Estonia, as as a symbol of Estonia, because if you look at the amount of money that Estonia has spent, relative to any other country in the world, not the actual dollar amount, but relative to their
Right.
country size and their GDP and everything like that, they've done 10 times what other countries have done that are way bigger, that are way more um, economic in terms of the global power standings.
Yeah,
Um,
I wish
but
we had that graph, because it's like Estonia here, and then
yep,
it's like Latvia a little bit down, and then it's like Poland a little bit more down, and then everybody else.
yeah,
It's like
and
you can't really compare what the Baltic states have done on a per GDP per person level. It's
correct.
crazy.
I mean, it's a country. I forget the exact population level, but I mean, it's a whole country that's the population is smaller than most large metropolitan cities in the United States. You know what I mean, and abroad. So
Right.
it's a lot. Yeah, when the war kicked off, Hari's like, well, how can I help now? It's not like he is just a random guy off the street that said, oh, I'm going to go find steel plates. You know what I mean? He has somewhat of a military background, so he understands what is needed to save lives, and what soldiers really require. And he just started reaching out to steel mills and saying, hey, do you have this kind of steel? And some said yes, some said
Oh,
no, some said we'll help you, well, some said we'll donate it, some said we'll sell it to you. Some people are price gouging. He didn't really care. He was
right.
just buying it all. I mean, if it was the type of steel that he needed and they had it, he was buying it. Now at that point, because of this, he was making relationships with other people. You know what I mean? And then we started chatting kind of on Signal, all together as a group. around the world, and that was pretty cool too. That we had a method of communication that tied us all together, and we were kind of able to come up with a kind of a structure of how things are laid out and does what role and to help each other out. And we're constantly, I mean, my phone is going off 24/7. I mean, 24/7. My wife that's the only thing that frustrates her about all this is how much my phone goes off. You know what I mean? Like my watch,
Who
my
is it
phone.
mostly? What kind of people are contacting you? What kind of messages are you getting?
Oh, women from around the world. No, I'm kidding. No, it's just people from the organization. It's people from within the organization. I mean, it's 40 of us. You know what I mean? Plus, there are people that are not
Yeah.
necessarily directly within the organization, but like are helping us. Whether it's a vendor or whatever it may be, or a donor. So there's a lot of people you got to respond back to. A lot. I mean, whether the Twitter stuff is not my responsibility, but I'm in, for example, the group chat that handles the Twitter and social media chats, and they sometimes share, the massive volume of the amount of chats that the Ukraine Aid Ops, channel gets. Hari's told me, I mean, what he gets is probably 20 times more than what the Ukraine Aid Ops channel gets. So, I mean, he has to
Well,
deal with that too. You know what I mean? So if my phone's going off, I mean, I can only imagine what his phone's doing. I mean, he's literally carrying around power banks with him just to not even sometimes to be able to answer, but just so his phone doesn't die from the zzz, 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 zzz,
that's what I
zzz.
was gonna say. Like, how does that phone still live? Basically.
It lives. It lives. But listen, we live off of our phones. We've had to learn a lot about how operational security works and things we can and can't do. And luckily, we have people on our team that are very well versed in this, that can help us with this, because security is key, not only for the people in Ukraine, but we want to keep the members of the organization safe as well. Because we have people in Ukraine, we have people abroad. You know what I mean? We have people literally on every continent except Antarctica.
Yeah, how does that? Maybe you can run us through how does this okay, first of all, maybe you should clarify just for the audience, what kind of supplies are you getting to the Ukrainian soldiers? Which soldiers are you getting them to? Is it to like the territorial defense force? Is it to foreign volunteers? And yeah, so which supplies and who are you getting into? And you mentioned something about steel plates, because I feel like steel plates is kind of the center of this a little bit, and at least that's how it started. And and is there like a certain grade of steel that this
Mm-hmm.
needs to be for it to? So yeah, just maybe talk to those three things. Sorry if that
Cool.
was too much, but just talk to
No, no,
those.
no. So in terms of the main things that we're sourcing, so like we've a little bit divulged of things that we're getting, just because as we grow, we meet more people that can help us with various vendors and supplies that if we can get eyewear easily or hearing protection easily, we can't say no to it. But that's not our primary focus. The way that this started was specifically body armor. I mean, at the end of the day, hearing protection is very important. Eye protection is very important, but ringing in your ears and tinnitus, you won't, you're not going to die from it. It sucks to live with. But if we can source a body armor or a helmet, that's the most important thing for us. That's our primary focus. Helmets are a little bit more difficult. I mean, obviously they're more difficult to ship just from the shape and size of them,
Right.
and just the amount of manufacturers that are making them, and there's a lot more that goes into that. So that's a harder thing to source. For the armor plates, there's two types of armor plates that we work with. So there are steel plates, and it's not just a regular steel plate. I mean, there's a coating process, and I mean they're curved to a certain way, they're cut a certain way. They have a certain coating that's then applied to them to prevent spalding, and then trauma
How is
padding
it?
attached to them.
I'm sure you. I'm pretty sure that you are very careful about which suppliers you use. Like you're not going to just go to China and be like, I need from China, the 100,000 steel plates for armor. And why
No, no,
wouldn't you
no.
do that? What would happen if you did that?
So in terms of sourcing steel, the type of steel that we're sourcing, it's in various countries, it's known under different names. Here in the US, for example, it's AR 500 or AR 600 steel, depending on the level of plate that it is. In Europe, it's known as Hardox, so Hardox 500 or Hardox 600. So there's a brand name for this type of steel everywhere, and we're only going to buy the brand name steel. We're not going to buy any knockoff steel. They could tell us as much as they want that it's this hardness, but unless it's got that stamping on it that it says that it's this brand, we're not going to buy that. So
is that like a government stamp or something? Is that like some
the
sort of
manufacturer,
verification?
it's the manufacturer that makes the steel. That's this patented product, this patented method, and this. I guess I'm not a steel or chemistry expert, but it has a lot to do with the hardness of the steel and the alloys that go into it to make it what it is. So that get handled by a department in our organization that specifically knows, what the requirements are for that and have experience in this and have the proper machinery to then cut those plates to that and bend them to the proper thing and add the proper trauma plates and their proper anti-spalling. I mean, the people that are doing this aren't just, they didn't just start doing this in their mom's basement. These are people that know what they're doing and have experience in it. There's a lot of manufacturers specifically here within the U.S., and that's most of what when you see reasonably priced body armor for sale in the United States, it's usually steel plates that you're getting. That it's usually AR-500 steel coated. You definitely want to make sure it's from a good supplier, and what most suppliers do, and also what we do. If we're making the steel plates, or even if we're buying the steel plates, we test everything. Everything gets tested. We take everything to the range. A lot of times, with the units accompanying us, we've had various government agencies take these steel plates out to test them to make sure that they're safe to hand out to soldiers. And so far, we've had plates that fail, and we say, nope, we're not going to make any of these, or we're not going to buy any of these. And we have plates that pass with flying colors beyond what we believe are going to pass. And we say, yep, these we're going to pass, these we're going to get, these are going to make. So
What
that's on the steel
happens?
side.
But like, what happens if if you were to use it? I mean, maybe in somebody's mind, steel is just steel. You know what I mean? And the steel, but like, why wouldn't you just want to go get the cheapest Chinese stuff and have it imported in mass to Ukraine? Like, what would be the repercussions of
Um,
that?
Um, well, overall, just the steel, a bullet penetrating through the steel. I mean, a bullet hitting steel, you'd think that any amount of steel will stop it, depending on the thickness, but
Right.
thickness is only a part of it. You know what I mean? Will it shatter? You know what I mean? It can do that. It can crack. You know what I mean? If it's not the proper, if it doesn't have the proper, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain. I'm looking for the proper terminology. But even like today, we went testing scopes today. We were shooting, steel plates. You can bust through steel plates. You hit a steel chain, it's steel. It could break. You know what I mean? When we were hitting thick steel plates, and I mean, some of the rounds, I mean, if you look at the steel plates, we didn't break it through anything, but we know that some other rounds that they shot at that range before did. So if we had that plate on somebody, that person ain't making it. So it's the type of steel is very, very, very important. So it's very specific to that AR-500 and AR-600 steel. For the steel plates, and even within those AR-500s for one specific rating of caliber, and then the 600 is a different rating of caliber, and they go up depending on the level. The higher number, the higher the rating is. In the same way that if you look at body armor, it has different levels. Level 3, level 3 plus, 4 plus, whatever it is. So there's different levels to the body armor too. I'm not a body armor expert. I just
No, you spoke very well. I was impressed. I mean, all this
I've
stuff.
learned
I
I've
didn't
learned a lot
know.
about body armor. I learned about a lot of stuff. I mean, I've always been kind of a little bit of a gun snob, but body armor is a whole other thing that most civilians don't have. But it's been interesting. I've had a lot go through my hands just in terms of just even us just getting a sample just to try it and feel it, or even it's been a lot of samples and a lot of things going like, nah, I wouldn't want this out in the battlefield. This is good for paintball or airsoft, but yeah, it's not going to hold a 15-pound
So,
steel plate in it.
in short, we are getting. You guys are making sure to get the highest quality armor, body armor. Does that include armor for like arms and legs, as well for limbs and?
So limb armor is a completely separate thing. I mean, there's really no army that gives out limb armor. Now there are one of the big things that's a huge request, but they're very hard, very expensive to source. And relativity of what they do is abdominal trauma guards. So I mean, they kind of go below where the regular bulletproof vest ends, kind of right below the sternum. and go all the way down, covering the groin area. Because if you get hit there, I mean, the chances of you surviving is very, very limited. Also, usually that's a covered area because you're usually, whether in your trench or ducking, you know what I mean, you're not as exposed there. But if you're running, you get hit there, it's not good. But we're trying to be very specific of what we can get to the masses, you know what I mean, and what we can get in large quantities. And sometimes certain things are just overly expensive of what they'd actually do, and how much time and resources they take for them compared to other things. For body
Got
armor,
it.
there's a lot of manufacturers for vests. Finding good ones is a little tougher, but there's a lot of companies that make them compared to, say, the groin protectors. It's like 3 companies that make them. Same
Got
thing
it.
with steel. There's a lot of companies that have the guidelines of how to cut steel plates. Not a lot of companies have, the guidelines how to cut groin plates or even make them. So that's on the steel side. That's for specific units. Mostly units that are either going to be patrol units, a little bit further back, regular territorial defense. Specialty units, we source ceramic plates that are much lighter. Recon units, scouting units, stuff like that. For those, we get ceramic plates, which are significantly more expensive. So obviously, we don't get them in the same quantities. But certain
Why
units
would a
require
ceramic plate be more expensive? It seems
the
like it would
process.
be less. It would have not the same hardness. Like it wouldn't be as durable. Just from
It's
the
actually
word ceramic versus steel.
it's ceramic is a very broad term. You know what I mean? There's ceramic within it. I mean, it's not just like they're not wearing a ceramic bowl material that's just baked in an oven. You know what I mean, on themselves. They're not Roman warriors or Chinese warriors from the ancient dynasties. It's composites. It's layers of different materials. It just happens to have ceramic within it. Ceramic, I guess, has certain qualities to it as well that have reducing capacities of breaking a bullet apart from when it hits it. But like I said, there's a lot of other layers that go to it, but it's significantly lighter, way lighter than the steel plates. Steel plates are extremely heavy. I mean, I didn't think I would have never realized how heavy steel plates are. I mean, you see them on cops sometimes. I mean, they usually don't wear steel necessarily. They usually wear ceramic also. But I mean, you see a lot of military wearing steel body armor, or even people like training outside, even in Florida, wearing body armor. But I didn't realize until feeling some of this how heavy this stuff is, or even the helmets, these modern fast cut helmets, which kind of fit your head and look like they're really nice and conform to you. They're heavy. I mean, this is plus, if you have hearing protection and night vision or eyewear, whatever you may have on it, it's a lot of weight that you're putting on there. So the ceramic
Um,
plates, save a couple of pounds, and that couple of pounds makes a huge difference when you're out there for
yeah, for
hours,
sure,
walking miles or
for sure.
kilometers.
Uh,
You
uh,
had some other questions. I forgot the other
yeah,
questions in
I
the.
forgot them also. Okay, but let's one thing we can do because we started with here is um Harry, and he's going through. He's got a van. He's got steel plates, and he's coming to Ukraine. Maybe I just how does it go from there to where it is today? How did that
So
happen? And
during
what is
that time,
also the need? Like, what is the need
yeah, that was the
that you
question
guys
you
are
asked.
doing? Yeah.
So the need for supplies. I mean, there's really a need for anything and everything. Whether it's in our operational budget to be able to purchase things, we have a certain priority list of what we need to get based on what it can do to save a life versus what it can just be to be a comfort item. Like for example, our top priority right now is the helmet and body armor campaign. It's a super crazy high level number. You know what I mean for what we're trying to get. Within that time period, we're obviously going to be purchasing with the amounts that we're getting. So we're going to be pulling money out from there and, purchasing in sets. We're not waiting for the full amount to just start buying the armor and the helmets, but we have a pretty high goal, but that's also our highest priority. But even in the 2 weeks or so that we've been running the campaign, to give you a number here, give me a second, 145,000 euro in about 2 weeks, with about 800 donations to get to that amount. But that's our priority right there. On our link tree, which I think you're sharing the link tree over there at the bottom, you'll see all of
Right.
our campaigns, and they're really in order of priority. Like we do have just a main donation page where people can just donate funds to, and that's going to be for purchasing other equipment that we need to buy. Not necessarily going towards the helmets and body armor. Like we just had our previous campaign was for the radios and stuff like that. That was our main campaign. We did have the side campaign going just for other equipment that we were buying, whether it's vehicles, gasoline, diesel. I mean, just helping just the troops get to where they need to go as well. Following that, we do have just the Amazon lists as well. The Amazon lists, a lot of it's life-saving equipment, and some of the things are just comfort items. I mean, just even like body wash cloths. When you're out there for a week or two and you can't take a shower, sometimes something as simple as that, you know what I mean, just makes a huge difference.
Actually,
Cigarettes.
that's a good point that
Things
I
in my
didn't think
budget
to
would
mention. I
take
want to
place.
just interrupt you. If somebody doesn't want to give money, let's say
Mhm.
for their own personal reasons, they're scared where it'll go, that sort of thing. They could also just buy from the Amazon list, and it'll ship to you, more or less, right?
So there's two Amazon lists. So we have one for Germany and we have one for the United States. So we have several warehouse network hubs set up around the world. One being here in Florida, one being in Germany. What we did is we started the Amazon wish list for the U.S. And then really the next day we started the German one as well. Getting stuff from the U.S. to Germany obviously takes a bit of time and a bit of money in terms of shipping. Luckily, we do have a company that's working with us, giving us extremely good shipping rates. So thank you to them for working with us. What was I going to say? But it takes time to get there. But you can get stuff sometimes a little bit cheaper or a lot cheaper in the U.S. than you can abroad. And there's a larger
Right.
selection of things available here. But we also have the wish list for Germany, which is really quicker. And a lot of the more comfort items people can buy there. The nice thing about that is we really like to take pictures as long as it's within operational security and we can do so. We constantly post and update people of where their donations are going. So, I mean, if you follow our Twitter or Harry's Twitter, you'll very easily be able to sometimes pick out like, oh, that's the book bag that I bought, you know what I mean? Or that's the water purifier that I bought, or that's the rangefinder, or that's the drone, or whatever it may be. And you know what I mean? So you could follow it to the end. So if you're not comfortable with donating money, yeah, you could donate an actual item and you can see it get to the end result. And a lot of times it's easier. I mean, you don't have to put in, credit card information or money information or anything like that. I mean, most people already have an Amazon account, so it's just click, click, boom. One point I will make when you are shopping on the Amazon wish lists, when you are done shopping on the Amazon wish lists, make sure you switch the address back to your own address because we've gotten a few like random items that people forgot to switch the address back to their address, and like we got their kids soccer cleats or something like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, switch it back to your address, especially if it gets to Europe. I
Sure.
mean, it's too expensive to ship
Sure,
it back. So once it's there,
some
it's there.
soldiers' kid will appreciate those soccer cleats, though.
We'll,
but
we'll
but
auction them off.
maybe what just one thing I'm realizing. What maybe you can speak a little bit about to because this is a big, complicated operation. You're talking about a country of like 40 plus million. Obviously, 8 million have left. But this is
Let it
just
come back.
it's a massive operation, right? Exactly. But it's just a massive operation. It's a massive operation for your 40 volunteers, and so you have an army that went from 200,000 not that long ago, and now with all the volunteers and the conscriptions is now 700,000. That's the number that Zelensky threw out there. And maybe you can talk a little bit about, okay, so once somebody knows that they're going to become a soldier, maybe some people have in their mind like, okay, so the army's going to give them some, a gun and maybe armor, maybe a helmet, but I don't think it's so smooth like that. I'm sure, like, maybe you can talk a little bit about the need in that how, when a Ukrainian goes from civilian to soldier, especially in these last 3 months, or even the existing soldiers, the foreign legions, the Georgian Legion out there. I know there's a picture on Harry's Twitter about how he just delivered a bunch of armor to the Georgian Legion. Um, just talk about how what does that new Ukrainian soldier look like? What do they, do you guys help that person out? How do you guys pick who gets what? How does that work?
So, I mean, to start off with, how things get handed out within Ukraine. So, certain things there's a lot of. Certain things there's not very many of. So, certain things go bad. Certain things don't go bad. Certain things you stockpile. Certain things you don't. So, one of the things stockpiled since the time of the Soviet Union was, copious amounts of AK-47s. I mean, copious amounts of AK-47s. I mean, why get rid of them? And then, even then, there was tons sold off to various countries all over the world, throughout history. But there's a lot of AKs and variants of AKs. A lot of a decent amount of ammo for them. The problem is accessories. So the Soviet soldier of yesteryear carried just an AK and on a sling and a little sling pouch that had 2 extra magazines in it, and that was really it. I mean, that was the kit loadout for a Soviet soldier. You know what I mean? It wasn't great. Um, the problem is in modern combat that doesn't really work. I mean, you need a modern setup, and if you look at most modern armies, these soldiers have multiple magazines, usually up at the front of their chest on the chest rig or directly on their body armor or somewhere on them. You know what I mean? They're ready to go. That's where the biggest slack is. So, and also going to the structure of how things work. Ukraine obviously has a structure of military, and you have your higher up units at the top, and your government agencies and stuff like that, and it trickles down towards the bottom. Unfortunately, there's a lot of territorial defense. Not unfortunately about the defense side, but unfortunately, there's not enough to go around to give them the actual full-blown military equipment. So they can supply all the soldiers. You know what I mean? They accounted for that over the course of their military history. They've counted, okay, we have this many soldiers in our army. Yeah, we have to have a little bit of extra in stockpile in case something happens. But they didn't think that they're going to have to get this many people involved in it. So it's this extra gear, you know what I mean? So to give that man a helmet and body armor, that's where it gets tougher once it gets to the lower levels, especially when there's multiple fronts, you know what I mean? So at the beginning of the war, there was a lot of fronts all throughout the country. Now it's a little bit more centralized in certain areas, but there's a lot more people fighting in those centralized areas. And as more people get pulled into this, they go to training. From what everybody that I've spoken to, they're not just giving people a gun and say, hey, you go fight. You know what I mean? They are sending people to training, basic training, some, how to take apart a gun, how to shoot, how to deal with this, how to deal with that, how to treat a basic wound. They do give people a run-through course of what to expect and what's going to be happening over there. And they don't send everybody out. It's some people that are trained are still kind of as a reserve force. You know what I mean? They're not at the point where they have to get everybody. And going back to your foreign volunteer side of it, they have turned people back. If you don't have combat experience and you're coming from abroad, they're not just going to let you pick up a gun and go fight for Ukraine. You know what I mean? Or join the Ukrainian military to do so legally and then fight Ukraine. But they're not going to let you do
You're
that.
saying
You know what
if
I mean?
you're a foreign fighter, right? Like not no, obviously if you're a Ukrainian, whether or not you have combat experience, you gotta go.
Correct.
But if you're a foreign fighter, they're much more sensitive to that.
Yeah, correct. Like, oh, look, I have no military experience. So I know how to shoot a gun. I do. But if I was to go over there, I can try and plead with them and say, hey, look, my family is from here and I want to fight for this country. I'm a liability also, you know what I mean, without my combat training. And for them to even give me that basic training and then put me out there, it's a liability for the country, and it's not going to look good on them either. But if people are trained, if it's a person's a veteran from another country and they have experience, it's a little bit less of a liability, and they can then officially join a legion and then go help the Ukrainian military. But going back to supply issues, if you're going there, you can't expect that they're going to have the supplies to just give you a full loadout kit. You know what I mean? So a lot of the people that are going there to join foreign legions, they're bringing their own supplies. Sometimes they're bringing supplies for their buddies. Sometimes they don't have supplies. So I mean, we've supplied, even within various legions, people that we know that are within the organization that have acquaintances within the organization or know each other from past military service that we've helped supply. So there's a lot of personal connection that goes into it as well. In terms of who gets the stuff, we do have a list, not a list, but like a sign up where the units can send us requests. And then it gets vetted through kind of the people that deal with on the ground that deal with, okay, where's the fighting actually going on? How much of this do they need? And how much of it do we have? And then they work on the distribution. And sometimes it might not be everything. We might not be able to give everybody everything. Sometimes we have to divvy things up. But that's what we try to do. We try to be fair. That's the biggest thing about it too.
That's
You can't
hard.
give
I
everything
feel
to
like that's
everybody,
hard.
you know, and it's really really tough because the amount of requests we get is more than what we can supply. So we try to do our best, you know what I mean. But even if we can give them a portion of what they need, it's better than, you know, them not having it at all. And we'll work on trying to get it all. But that's why we need people to continue to help. Us to be able to get the supplies. You know what I mean? If it's not for people that are supporters, we can work as hard as we can as you know, 40 or so volunteers, but we can't really help in terms of, you know, ourselves fiscally. We can support a single soldier. You know, if I knew somebody personally there who was fighting, you know, I could go buy them body armor or stuff like that. But how much of an impact is that going to make compared to 40 of us, you know, working on crowdsourcing and donations and working with suppliers and vendors? You know, we can help tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. That's a much bigger impact,
Amazing.
you know, than a
I
single
agree.
person.
Um, let's. That leads me to my next question. Is one thing I really want to point out about Ukraine aid ops. This is something we talked about before today. Is that Ukraine ADOPS is end-to-end organization. You guys aren't like giving it to somebody, giving the equipment to somebody, um, for them to think of, you know, for them to distribute it. Like Ukraine ADOPS is with the equipment 100% of the time until it gets to the end result. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that because we always see the pictures. You know, if you follow, and I really recommend that you follow Ukraine ADOPS on Twitter, and also Harry, who's the founder, on Twitter. Um, they're constantly posting photos, and maybe you can just talk about how, you know, what, from source to end, what does that process look like? You know, let's say you get body armor from the States. What happens to it next?
So most of the body armor so far has been coming from other countries outside of the States. We're working on
Okay.
U.S. suppliers for mostly carriers. So bringing stuff out of the States for certain items, plates, thermals, even like thermal drones, scopes.
Wow.
Those are regulated items. You know what I mean? So they're not. You can't just ship them or bring them with you. You know what I mean? There's certain regulations you have to go through, which we're working on right now, of obtaining the proper legal channels so we can start exporting, you know, that the regulated items from the U.S. So all the plates have come really from Europe so far, mostly from Estonia and a few other places right now at this point. Um, your question was
So then,
end
like,
result.
then the
Yes,
plate
so,
would go to like Kiev, like to a warehouse, and
so
then you would have like internal distribution systems. Is that how you do it?
correct. So the reason that we don't necessarily just hand the stuff off to the government and say, "Hey, you guys figure it out," um, bureaucratic channels get tied up a lot. You know what I mean? In terms of, it takes days sometimes for things to get approved, for, you know, requests to get done, and the legalities of things. I mean, it's a different process when it comes to bureaucracy of getting things to the end result, and it'll get to the end result. The problem is it just takes a while to get there. We would rather just hop in a truck and deliver it ourselves, or have somebody from the unit come and pick it up and bring it back, because for us it's about time. You know what I mean? Time and efficiency is key, and that's one of the things that we've really had to prioritize. I mean, some of the people in this organization, or a lot of the people in this organization, are business owners, you know, or business people, and they think about cost effectiveness in terms of, okay, are we wasting a little too much money on, you know, maybe shipping something? Should we take the slower route for shipping, even though it's this much cheaper? But then we have to realize, like, yeah, we could save, you know, this amount of money by getting a cheaper shipping, but it's going to take a few days longer to get there. And how many people can we save in those few days if we get it there faster? So that's what we have to keep constantly reminding us, is like, speed is the key. We have to get things as quickly as possible, as long as it makes sense. I mean, we're not going to get ourselves ripped off and overpay for something, because there's plenty of vendors that we've spoke to. There's a lot of warmongers. There's a lot of people that are trying to make and profiteers that are trying to make money off of this war. You know, from all over, you know, the world that we've dealt with. So I mean, you call some people and you're like, oh yeah, you know, we're going to get you the best source. We're giving you 50% off. We're giving it to you at cost. And then, you know, you order a sample from them, and then you get the sample and you look at the tags on the sample, and that's not even the company that you ordered it from. So you call the company where the sample's from, like what the tag says, and they're like, oh no, we can get it for you for this amount. And we're like, oh my God, like, this person was charging us double or triple that. You know what I mean? So That's where we have to be really careful of cost effectiveness. But we try to do this all very, very quickly. So if we see something that we like, we'll order a sample and we'll get it going. You know what I mean? We'll test it, and if it's good, we'll get it ordered. Today, for
So is it?
example,
Yeah.
me and a couple of the other guys on our crew here, that one happens to live in Florida, one lives out of state, but happens to be visiting Florida right now before they head out. We tested a bunch of optics today that we purchased that we got from a vendor at a really good rate. And we tested 8 optics altogether today, 7 from one vendor, 1 from another vendor. Well, the one from the one vendor didn't hold out, but 5 out of the 7 from the other vendor were really good optics for a really good budget. And that can really help a lot of people in terms of being able to see whether it's in the day or at night or in between. So.
And then from there, from so basically, you have your maybe central distribution point, and then is it Harry? Is it you have like a whole team that drives the van out to the unit, to the front lines or
So
wherever they might be?
without getting into too much in terms of
Right.
giving out the logistical channels, but so like there's a couple of different processes and steps. So I mean, for things coming from the U.S., whether they're items or whether they're Amazon donations, whether they're so Amazon donations go to a forwarding warehouse. That's where everything goes. It was going to my house at first, which was nuts. I mean, I was getting like literally. I'll pull up a picture of what it looks like. What was I gonna say? Give me one second here. Trying to find this picture. So the first day I got literally 200 packages to my house, and we said, okay, this is not going to work. And going back to social media, I'm going to tell you a real quick story, but it has to do with the organization. It's really cool of how
Yeah, please.
things just match up so perfectly. So I'm here in Florida, and we start this Amazon wish list, and within the first few hours, literally we had like 250 donations. So my wife and I go into
Wow.
panic mode. We go, how are we going to get 250 donations to our house? How am I going to like sort through all this? How am I going to get it out there? How am I going to repackage it? Because you know how Amazon packs, they put one small item, this big into a box that big with a whole bunch of packing material. So we can't ship that. We have to repack everything. I said, how am I going to do all
Wow.
this? So I went into complete like panic mode. So I reach out to our general chat and I said, hey guys, panic mode. What are we going to do? And one of the guys in our organization who lives in South Africa goes, you're in Florida, right? I said, yeah. And he names my town. And I go, that's where I live. And he goes, oh, do you know where this is? And I said, yeah, it's on my way to work. I see it every day. I pass it every day. And he goes, well, this is what they do. And I've been doing this with them for this many years. They're a forwarding warehouse. And I said, oh my
Okay.
God, like this is just it's fate. Like just what are the chances that like that between
Some guy in
Ukraine,
South
Estonia, and
Africa would
South
know.
Africa, and this place, you know what I mean? And so all the Amazon donations go there now. They literally sort through everything. They photograph everything. They do all the customs forms for us. They repackage and consolidate everything into larger boxes instead of smaller boxes. Put it on a pallet, wrap it up, and ship it via air to our warehouse in Germany, which is where the German Amazon stuff goes to. The U.S. Amazon stuff eventually ends up over there. U.S. purchases in general end up in the German warehouse as well. From Germany, we then have Green Core Channel to drive it into Ukraine. So we have a network of vehicles constantly driving back into Ukraine, back to Germany, back to Ukraine, back to Germany, which seems like a lot going through multiple countries constantly.
Yeah.
Which it is
Yeah.
when you live in that part of the world. But then when I looked at it, that's like the distance for me driving from Florida to like New York. You know what I mean? Which I've done plenty of times. You know what I mean? So it's a doable trip. You know what I mean? So constantly, and then we also have a warehouse in Estonia where we have other stuff coming from, and also they have to do the truck down. We had vehicles coming down from there. So really, the points come from U.S. to Germany to Ukraine or Estonia to Ukraine. But then they go to Kiev where they're stored in a warehouse and then from there distributed to the various military units. I'm just trying to find this picture here still. So I'm listening
Sure,
to
no
you.
problem. Um, I there's obviously this perception that people have when they by the way, before I continue, I see some people posting in the chat. It's not so many. Um just so you know, we are going to be monitoring the Twitter post. So if you reply on the Twitter post to this stream, we're gonna see that, and so new questions will be posted here, obviously. But if you guys post, um, you got feel free to post questions. A big part of this will be QA, and so I want you guys to have this opportunity to if you're thinking, if you have anything on your mind, if you have any concerns, if you have any serious questions, if you were to donate to this, okay.
That was day
So
one
now,
of coming home. You know what I mean?
oh my,
When so that's just one day of packages. I mean, that's multiple layers deep. So that was like literally for 250 packages. It was 3 or 4 days of that, and then a slow trickle of like other packages. I was going nuts. Like I wasn't look. Usually, you come home and you're looking forward to your Amazon deliveries. You're like, ooh, Amazon deliveries, and I'm at a point where I was like, oh, I hope the Amazon truck didn't come. I mean, literally, like I have a video on my the Ring doorbell of the truck being there, and I mean, it was just going and going and going and going and going and going. I mean, so much stuff. It was kind of funny, but all that stuff ended up in Ukraine. It's cool because people could watch that stuff get there. You know what I mean? So it's cool.
awesome. Um, yeah, just last thing real quick. I want to encourage people to ask questions, and part of this, what we're doing now is, if you're looking at an organization to donate to, and you want to get more information, this is the time to do it. We have Alan here. I'm not letting him go. He is chained, and he is here to answer any questions or concerns that you guys may have. Anything like from, there's some things that he can't talk about. I even asked him some things, and he's like, I got to be I can't speak about this, or I can't show this for obvious reasons. We're going to go through some pictures in a second, and you see like there's things blurred out. You see that the like for this picture, there's a face blurred out. There's the sky is blurred out. There's a reason for that. And Alan was just telling me, like, there are people so good at identifying, and maybe there could be some AI out there that identify places and locations, and they are very careful about that. But in terms of any questions, please feel free to ask questions. If you're on Twitter, ask it on the Ukraine Aid Ops stream for this. They retweeted the stream, and just ask it there. Or if you're on YouTube or Facebook, I think you can just ask it in the chat. I see people from YouTube posting here, so feel free to do that. I'm gonna turn off this chat thingy majig and make this a little bit bigger. The next question I have is, obviously people have a certain perception of what they see, right? On Twitter, a lot of people come to know you through Twitter. And okay, so they think like, okay, another aid organization, there's like 1,000 of these. It's not until you like really dive into the organization. What do you think are some of the like misconceptions that people have about what's actually going on, or maybe some things that people aren't aware of, maybe just because they're not there, they're not on. And by the way, I just want to let people know, Alan has a day job, and he's probably working at least 40 hours a week in his day job, and then he comes home and he spends another 40 to 60 hours per week doing this. And I am in total awe and inspiration of Alan. Obviously, he doesn't have kids yet, but they'll come soon, I hope. And but until then, he is like running this thing like a mission, like a job. And so we definitely, on that note, give our thanks to Alan and everybody else putting in a lot of hard work. But what do you think people just are maybe don't have the right perception about, or just something that somebody, if somebody were to find you through Twitter, like they wouldn't know something, uh, they
So
wouldn't understand something.
I have to say, there's a huge thank you to all the organizations that are out there that are legitimate organizations, which there are a lot of, and we do work with a
Yeah,
lot of other organizations. You know what I mean? we can't do it alone. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, whether it's for budgeting reasons or resource reasons, or sometimes the minimum order quantity might be like 1,000, but we only need 500. We might reach out to another organization that might need another 500. You know what I mean, for themselves. So
Wow.
the ultimate goal is to save lives. You know what I mean? We're not looking to be the number one heroes or the only organization or the top organization. If we can save lives, great. If somebody can save more lives than us, great for them too. But as long as we can save one life, you know what I mean, we already did a lot. So our job is to just save as many as we can, and that's true for most of the organizations that are out there. Now, having said that, there are a lot of organizations out there that are also not 100% legitimate. You know what I mean? They might be either not legitimate at all or only 50% legitimate, or might have personal reasons to gain in that. And a lot of that you can find out from just a little bit of deep reflection into yourself. Everybody in an organization,
Mm.
one of the things I like to ask about people when they join our organization is, what's your reason for doing this? What ties or connections do you have to Ukraine? And I just like to see how people respond to that, because we've had some people kind of stutter, and they don't really have a reason of why they're doing this. So sometimes it might make you question their intentions of why they do. Are they in this for the glory? Or are they in this for the wild ride? And we have found that where we've run into other foreigners in Ukraine, and it's almost like they're there for a safari. You know what I mean? They're there to have fun and have a little risk in their lives. But if things get too dangerous, they can hightail it out of there, not understanding that that person that they built a relationship with, that Ukrainian soldier that they said they're there to help, can't do the same thing. You know what I mean? So that's why we're very careful also who we allow into our organization. We've had a lot more than 40 people request to join. You know what I mean? So we have to be really careful with that. But yeah, we all dedicate a lot of time into this, tied into our jobs and everything else. I mean, some people literally just completely just stopped working completely. Even like Hari, for example. I mean, he's literally been living there. You know what I mean? He left his home
Yeah.
and just said, all right, I'm gonna live here for now. Hey, mom and dad and sister, brother, whoever he may have in Estonia, without getting into it. I mean, they're there, taking care of his home while he's in Ukraine, helping Ukrainian people. You know what I mean? So it's pretty amazing. So huge thank you to all the volunteers in Ukraine aid operations. I wish we can meet one day in person. That would be like the ultimate. That to me would be the ultimate reward. For when the war is over and Ukraine is won, and we can all go down to Crimea and rent a beach house and hang out together and think, where's that ship? Is it somewhere out there, or where do you guys think it's sunk? You know what I mean? So that would be the ultimate satisfaction, I think, for really anybody in our organization.
I'm in. Definitely. I think that's a very interesting point. I mean, I definitely did not have that perspective of intention, right? I think that's very key. Um, I don't know. Is there anything else that you think, maybe on the in the grassroots level, like, on the when, just people are not aware of, challenges that you guys run into uh in Ukraine or otherwise. Just people might think,
Oh,
okay, so I'm just gonna donate. They're gonna either gonna get their body armor, chick shack, like, it's not so bad.
there's definitely yes, they did add another ship to the submersible operation there. So somebody's comment. It was a tugboat, but still, yeah, it's definitely a success. And then also the oil rigs that are out there. So as this happens, I mean, Ukraine's always had a pretty good internal military industry. They've been a country that has sold military technology to other countries for years, going back, into the Soviet Union. A lot of those military factories that were there during the Soviet Union, became Ukraine when the Soviet Union fell apart. So they continued to make arms, and a lot of times really good arms, with a lot of good scientists and stuff like that. But in any case, to your point on the grassroots level, yeah, no, it's tough because, I mean, listen, nobody in this organization was ever involved with anything like this. I mean, a lot of us have done volunteer work or even run volunteer organizations, but not international ones in the time of a war with sourcing body armor and helmets and stuff like that. That's nothing any of us have ever dealt with before. It was completely new for all of us, and learning to work with people abroad. I mean, some people are used to working with people abroad. Some people haven't. I mean, for some people, they don't understand what time zone differences are. You know what I mean? That they just think that everybody's in the same general time zone. They don't understand what, plus 7 hours or minus 7 hours or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of learning curves with that. In terms of the processes and policies and procedures, we try to do as much research as we can, especially on the legal side. We don't want to step into any illegal areas. I'm not trying to go to prison abroad in the U.S. anywhere. I don't think anybody in the organization is. So we definitely make sure we check all the legalities. But in terms of like on the ground finalizing stuff, a lot of it we have to figure out on the fly. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a war zone, and policies and procedures change all the time. So like even this past week, the laws changed for like even in Germany of what they allow as humanitarian aid going to Ukraine. Poland and Ukraine changed what they allow to go through the borders for humanitarian aid and the processes for doing so. And it literally changes while we have somebody driving with that stuff, or while we have stuff in the air, in transit. And customs doesn't care if it was shipped out before. They say, hey, today's the date that it got here, and this is what it says. You know what I mean? This is the law. So yeah, there's a lot of learning. I've learned a lot. Everybody's learned a lot, and this is knowledge that we can take forward after this is over. A lot of us, this has inspired a lot of us to hopefully want to continue to help people all around the world, and then to help rebuild Ukraine. Once this is over, even though we're not going to be supplying body armor, there's going to be a huge need for ordnance collection and for unexploded ordnance and metal detectors and
Oh yeah.
anti-explosive suits and therapy and mental health care and physical health care and rebuilding supplies and tools and nails and hammers and all this stuff. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be over just when the fighting stops. We want the fighting to stop just so the life-saving, in terms of bulletproof vests and stuff can come to an end. But we know that there's going to be a huge need for a continuation of resources that we're going to have to continue to help with.
I was gonna wait till the end to talk about this, but it's kind of a good leeway. Basically we have some photos that we want to go through. We want you, if you can add to those photos, maybe share some few small stories while we go through them. I want to go through the last few slides of what we have.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but before we get that, maybe just speak to what started out as Harry flying down out of, or I should say, driving down out of Estonia with a truck full of armored plates. And what's interesting in talking to you last time was that I thought, okay, so Ukraine aid ops, they're doing a fabulous thing, and then like you said, once the war's over, there's going to be a long few years of demining and that sort of thing, but otherwise it's going to be a party. Everyone's really happy when it ends, and we're all optimistic in how it'll end. But you actually told me Ukraine aid ops wants to continue its journey, in the sense that it's gonna become something bigger. And maybe you can talk about that, because we're already at 1 hour. So before we get into some of these stories and pictures, maybe you can just talk about that, and hopefully some
For
of you
sure.
guys watching will add some questions in the meantime.
For sure. So yeah, we definitely want to not only, I mean, once the rebuilding phase and everything like that is over in Ukraine, which is going to take a really long time.
Yeah.
We definitely want to continue to help other parts of the world too. It's not like there's not necessarily on a conflict side, but there's a lot of humanitarian aid that's needed around the world. And if we already have this fantastic network of channels of getting resources, even if it's boots and water filtration and solar panels, whatever it may be, diesel generators, vehicles. There's a need for this all over the world. We can then help other parts of the world. You know what I mean? We've all realized how gratifying helping others can be. Even not everything has to be repaid, monetarily, but just sometimes it's nice to know that you've helped. You know what I mean? It's just it's nice to put your head down at night and know that you helped make somebody else's day that much easier. Because that's always something that I go to bed thinking about before Ukraine aid ops was a thing. or even before, the conflict in Ukraine. Well, this part of it, it's been going on since 2014. But even then, and any other conflict around the world, I've always thought about people elsewhere when they go to sleep, and do they have the same comfort level of rolling up in a nice cozy bed and taking a nice hot shower and having a good hot dinner, and you know what I mean. A lot of people don't have that, and if I know that I can make them going to sleep a little bit easier, you know what I mean, and having a little bit more of a comfortable life, that means a lot to me. And there's a lot of people that think the same way in our organization. I think that's one of the other things that we realized about each other. We're all very, very different, whether on our own political level, in terms of what we believe in for our own country, our own selves, or what we believe in anything else outside of this. We all have this understanding that we want to just like preserve life and help others, and that at the end of the day, regardless of politics and anything else, human life is key. You know what I mean? We're all humans at the end of the day, and we all do the same exact things. You know what I mean? And we all have the same needs. So let's figure
Yeah.
out how we can do it together.
And that's a great. That really hits the nail on the coffin. I think the I wrote a post today, and I said, look, this was on my personal Facebook, and I said, look, don't look at Ukrainians. It's very easy to feel numb to what's going on in Ukraine. We're already like 117 days into this war, 118 days maybe even, and it's really really easy by now to feel numb. And you already see that on the news, that you already see on the news that it's not being talked about as much. So at the end of the day, though, it's not right to think of Ukrainians as people in over there on the other side of the world, and and it has nothing to do with me. No, it's like these are people with the same needs as me. These were people living, working in tech, working as farmers, working as so many different things, and and they've had their lives uprooted, uh, for all the wrong reasons. And it's really on us. You can see how much of an impact the grassroots effort is having on these people's lives. And what happens when we allow for Russia to take over? What happened in Mariupol when, Russia has taken 1 million people out of Ukraine, including 30% of them being children, and they sent them to Eastern Russia, and they have no intention of sending them back. That's kidnapping. It's appalling what's going on. So okay, so I'm glad I think that basically wraps up everything. If anybody has any questions, I really encourage you to post. We're gonna wrap this up in about 20 minutes or so, and in the meantime, we're just gonna fly through some of these pictures real quick, and hopefully that'll give you some time to ask questions that you may have. Again, we are definitely getting questions from YouTube. Let's see, so if you ask a question on YouTube, we're definitely getting it. I'm checking. um there's somebody asked on Twitter to add that map from the Pew Research Center. I'll do that. Thanks for asking for that. I think that's an important piece of information to share. But at the very least, if you don't see us addressing your question, go on YouTube. The way to go on YouTube, I'm gonna show you right now. Right here, this link right here, leadreport.com/Ukraine. It's gonna take you right to the YouTube live stream. So I'm sorry if this tool didn't pick up your question on Facebook or whatever, or LinkedIn, and we'll pick it up through there. So I apologize for that. So in the meantime, let's go through some of these photos. And maybe if there's anything you can talk about in the photo, it'll be cool. I see. It looks like, is this a rabbi here on
This
the
is so
right?
yeah.
Is that the
So going back to your point of Jews in Ukraine, um, very early on in the war, scrolling through Twitter, I saw a very powerful image. It was of a rabbi and his son standing in a building and just saying a prayer. And I mean, if you were to see this image, you would think that it's somewhere in Israel, somewhere in New York. You know what I mean? Somewhere that's just, when you think of Hasidic Jews, you'd think somewhere outside of Ukraine, right? But no, this picture it was right in Ukraine, and it talks about a father and son that they're defending their homeland and stuff like that. And I said, wow, I'm really interested in this guy. I said, plus he has the most amazing beard I have ever seen anybody have. I've met plenty of rabbis in my lifetime. He is the most amazing beard I've ever seen on anybody. I mean, it's perfect. You know what I mean? And then I started doing a little research on him, and I realized that this guy has literally been fighting in Donbass since 2014. So I mean, he's not, it's not like the conflict just started and he joined. So his son is now fighting now because like the country got invaded. His son was in college. So in this photo here, the rabbi is second from the right. That's the guy with the very long white beard. That's very perfectly trimmed, as you can see there. His son is second from the left on there. So I mean, it's just when I saw that image, I said, I want to see if I can connect to them and help them. So for like 2 months, I tried reaching out to them and I couldn't get in contact with them. And eventually, somehow, for some reason, the son decided to answer me on, I think it was on Twitter, and he gave me his signal number, and we started chatting. And I mean, understandably so, they were almost like skeptical of like that we wanted to help them. And I'm like, look, like here's everything about me. You know what I mean? Here's where we're at in Ukraine. Let us try and help you guys. You know what I mean? I want to help you guys. And I know they're on the front lines. So eventually I did connect them on the ground over there. And when they made their trip recently, they met them and they gave them new plate sets. They had some old beat up plate sets. They gave them new plate sets.
Yeah,
And
actually, we might have a picture of that. Well, I think we have it like
just
near the end.
before you go there, so just to tell you a little bit about this photo also. So the vehicle you
Okay.
see in the background was donated to us by a gentleman as well. I think that's the one donated. We had one car donated, one car we purchased, but that's one of the two cars. I forget which two, but for some reason they're all Mitsubishis. Everything that's over there for right now is all Mitsubishis. A lot of Pajeros, new ones, old ones, hybrid ones, electric ones, diesel ones. Lots of Pajeros, but they don't break down. They last through everything. If you want to see actually some of the videos and photos of their trip out east, closer to the front lines, delivering equipment, Hari recently shared some of the videos from it of like it's rainy season right now and the roads are just flooded and they're having to have farmers drag them in tractors through with the Sprinter vans and stuff. It's pretty interesting. So definitely check out Hari's Twitter to see more about their journey. Yeah, that's the photo right there.
What is Harry's Twitter? I just put it up. Do you
so
have it? Harry?
It's yeah, so it's Twitter / sorry, it's Twitter / Hari HARRI _EST for Estonia. So HARRI _EST. There you go. Somebody just that's you shared it. Yep. So there's his Twitter right there.
So I'll just put that.
So you could take a look. That's the photo right there. Those are the new body armor that we got them, and he's holding the thermal optic that we got them as well. So that's going to help them, being able to do night patrols and seeing out a little bit further in the distance at night. That wasn't that actually. So the thermal there, if whoever's watching this, if you're an Amazon donor, that's an Amazon donation from the U.S. That was a little bit more complicated to get there because we couldn't just ship this. One of the guys in our team actually traveled to Ukraine and brought two suitcases full of drones and thermal optics. So that was an interesting story of bags getting lost.
Is that because of laws? Is it like why couldn't you just ship that?
So thermal optics, these are not ITAR. There's different regulations for optics. I've learned a whole bunch of this regulation stuff, but so there's different levels. So these that we provided, like them, what you see in this picture, are a lower level of thermal optics. So they're commercial, not commercial. They're consumer grade optics. They're not military grade. So they're definitely good for a specific purpose, but they can be shipped. They're just a little bit harder to ship. Not all companies will touch them. And like certain countries won't allow you to ship through them within Europe specifically. So for that, it was easier to just have somebody bring it with them because there's nothing wrong with it. Plus, we have all the paperwork necessary. Also, when we are bringing stuff, going back to our like making sure we check everything legally, we make sure we have all the legal paperwork that if we need it, we have it. You know what I mean? So we can show we declare everything here. This is what we have. Here's the paperwork for it, and this is where it's going. So it's pretty easy with that. It was easier to do that than it was to ship it. That's the reason for that.
Okay, I'm just checking Twitter real quick. There's
Sure.
nothing that I see yet, but okay, so let's just go on to the next picture. Let's see. By the way, thank you for that, because like looking at this photo, you wouldn't obviously you wouldn't immediately know all that stuff. So we have some
No,
more
you
pictures
just
of the rabbi.
four jolly guys in there, right? So this picture is a cool picture here. So this is actually
And
two
by the way,
teams.
that's
Really,
Harry. The guy with the mask is Harry. The guy with the mask.
yep,
Like this, Harry
or the
doesn't
blurred
show his
face.
face, although I think Harry did say if they reach $1 million in donations, he will take it off.
Yep.
Maybe you could
For him,
talk
it's really
about
about more
just
raising money. So the reason he's covering his face, I mean, it's also become part of the identity and the image. You know what I mean? Going back to him kind of representing all Estonians. It's almost like the mysterious figure that represents all of Estonia. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the image of this, this blonde Estonian man that came to Ukraine with all the steel plates. Who is he? It's almost like Batman. You know what I mean? You don't know who's under the mask. You know what I mean? Is it Clark Kent or not Clark Kent? That's Superman. But in any case, even Superman, is it Clark Kent or who is it? Bruce Wayne. That would be Batman. So that's kind of part of the reason. The other part of the reason is security too. I mean, look, I mean, he is from a country that's just a few countries over, and Estonia is, most Estonians are supporting. But going back to Estonia being a Soviet country for many years, there are people that have Russian affiliation and ties there. So I mean, he has to look out for himself too. You know what I mean? And his family and friends there. So there's a few reasons for it. But yeah, I mean, if he reaches $1 million and that can help save a bunch of lives, he'll take it off.
right.
Ladies, if you wanted
The
to do some videos for you, no, I'm kidding. No, no OnlyFans for Hari. So yeah, in
are
that
these
photo,
ceramic plates right there? Is that what we're looking at?
so no, those are steel plates. Those are still uncoated. So on that steel plate, you'll actually see. So this is actually pretty cool. So you'll see on the plates, the one that's all the way on the right, you can kind of see some writing stamped on it. So that's
Yeah.
actually the Hardox marking. So that actually says Hardox. So you can't see all of it. The X is cut off over there, but that's from a big steel plate that was Hardox. It looks that color because it oxidizes quickly. So it's not rusted, it's just oxidized. The white stickers that you see on everything, those are the batch numbers for the steel plates. So that way, we know if something fails, we know which plate set or series that came from. Those are still to be coated before they go on somebody. So those are kind of raw steel plates. The coating part's the easier part, and sourcing the materials to do that's easier than the steel plates themselves. But in this picture here, it's actually two organizations together. So on the right
Oh
is
wow.
Hari. Next to him, that's my father-in-law, Yuri, who's also part of the organization. He's been an integral part in terms of helping us with making contacts and getting the paperwork that we need to get things over there and figuring out, who's part of what unit and stuff, and even translating in certain situations. So he's been really important over there. But
And your father-in-law is both a Ukrainian and American citizen, right? He's a
yeah.
dual.
So I mean, he could have my whole family that's over there in Ukraine. I mean, they could have came to the U.S. if they wanted to, but their level of patriotism is such that they felt like it was their obligation and duty to stay within Ukraine. He's also within the category of being able to leave. Age-wise, he's okay to leave, but he wants to stay. My mother-in-law wanted to stay. My sister-in-law wanted to stay. But if you go back to that photo for a second, I
Oh,
just wanted to
sorry.
point out. So if you'll notice, so you see the Ukraine Aid Ops sticker, or the magnet on the right-hand side, closer to
Right,
Hari and
right.
Yuri. On the other side over there, you see a different symbol, and it actually in Ukrainian it says "Dla Heroyev," which
Yeah,
means for the heroes. So that's another
right.
veteran. That's another volunteer organization started by a U.S. veteran named Tay, who's a medic, who is on the front lines doing escorts, evacuating people from the war zones, civilians and soldiers alike. And that's his organization. So we're giving some plates to them so they can stay safe. And we've given a lot of medical supplies to them, and we've helped them a lot. They've helped us a lot. That's a great organization. So also check out Dla Heroyev
So we'll
on
need to we'll need to make a note of that. Okay, so Dlagirov, we'll definitely try and reach out to them as well. I just want to be
That's
conscious of
actually
your
them.
time.
That's
How
actually
much
their.
time do we
That's
have?
actually them as well. I got about 10 minutes here, but that's
Yeah,
them
yeah,
as well.
okay.
Guys. That's them picking up medical supplies from a warehouse. So we found a contact that was able to help us source a bunch of medical supplies in a warehouse. So as you can see, they're extremely happy in this photo because that's a lot of needed medical supplies that they're going to be able to take with them to the front lines to help save a lot of lives.
Amazing.
The guy on the left of this photo, I forget his name. I'm bad with names. I'm sorry. I have to remember 40 within the our organization alone. But he's actually he's a local Ukrainian. He's from Ukraine, but before the war started, I mean, he was part of a rock band. I mean,
Wow,
he's like a rock musician. Um, what do you call it? He was actually he even performed for the troops and everybody over there. He's performing on the front lines just to cheer people up a little bit. But yeah, he's a rock star turned medic, translator slash hero evacuator. So really cool.
um, since I hate this because we do have a lot of photos, and I thought we'd have a little bit more time. I do want to make a call. I told Alan my goal is to get 300 people to donate $10. And I know we marketed this to, or promoted this, I shouldn't say marketed, we had a zero budget, but um, we definitely hit thousands of people. And so you saw for the last hour and a half what these people are doing, they're on the ground. I want to just, if you don't mind, I want to go forward. We can come back if we have a little bit more time to these photos. There's a lot of cool photos. These are all kind of recent ones. This is a Estonian media interviewing
Mm-hmm.
Harry. Um, so so starting here in the next two photos, here's Harry. This guy Isaac on the left is a former American soldier,
Yep.
and I was very timid. Maybe a lot of you guys listening right now or also feel like I did. I was very anxious about donating money to Ukraine because like Alan said before, there are scammers out there. There's people in it for themselves, and obviously there are some people that are vetted and have or they're promoted by the media or something, and so you feel better about it. But it was very important for me that I do my homework on this organization. But how could I do my homework not being in Ukraine? So I actually asked American soldiers that I knew were serving, that I met through Facebook or other places, and to vet Harry, and they just say Harry's the guy, Harry's the dude. I want to show you maybe. Oh, okay. Oh, maybe we
So
better
that's a
talk about
steel
this
plate.
assisted plate.
So that's so yeah, I'll mention this quickly. So this is a steel plate. This is already a coated steel plate. You'll notice that on the upper left-hand one where it was hit by a 7.62 armor-piercing round, it didn't penetrate. It held. But as you can see, a lot of the material off the front of it came off. So you can see the little middle circle. It kind of looks like an eye. So to kind of tell you, the pupil is literally the bullet where it stopped. Around it, the your eyeball itself, that's the steel, and around it, what looks like just lines and eyelashes and stuff like that. That's that rubberized coating that goes on top of it, which prevents the spalling. So you'll notice the spalling goes outwards. So what happens is when the bullet hits, if it wasn't coated like that and coated in the way that we coat things, the shrapnel would literally hit and could kill you. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
designed where if it hits you, it goes away from you. You know what I mean? When it hits you.
Incredible. If you look at the other shots, there's three other shots. Uh, do they look different because they were shot at an angle? Is that why they're like
No,
little cracks,
different.
or they're just different bullets?
Different bullets. It looks like range could be a
Yeah,
part of it as well. You know what I
yeah,
mean? The gun that it's shot out of has a lot to do with it as well, and the muzzle velocities, distances. I think distances. They tried several different distances and stuff like that. So
got it.
every hit is
So
a
this
little
was
bit
like a
different.
test plate mostly.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
I wanted to highlight this photo, and we have some pretty famous people in this photo. James Vasquez, who just the second guy from the right. Wait, so Harry's I think is in the far left, right? James
Yep.
Vasquez is former American soldier who gained a lot of popularity going to Ukraine, a lot of media coverage, and he had a unit and was. Sorry, go ahead. I know. I see
You
you want
said
to say
second. You
something.
said second. Yeah, you said second from the right. So again, you confuse. My father-in-law gets
Oh,
confused for
sorry,
somebody
sorry,
else.
sorry,
He's
sorry,
only
sorry.
second from the
Second
left.
from the left. Second from the left. Okay, so we're gonna get to that in a second. So these are some of the guys that I use to make sure that Ukraine aid ops is legit. I see that we're kind of getting. We have about 5 minutes left of Alan's time. I'm just gonna interrupt real quick. I mentioned just 5 minutes ago. I wanted to get 300 people to donate $10, and I know it's tough times. Um, but obviously, you see the work that they're doing here. They're doing incredible journey. They're doing incredible work. I'm talking about now how I verified this organization, but you see also the amount of investment that these people are putting into making miracles happen in Ukraine, saving lives. I mean, that's really, I think, what it comes down to is you have such a diversity of people, experts, people who've done this, people who haven't done this, people who have come from different backgrounds, and they're really coming together to save lives of people who deserve to be like you and me, sitting in our homes, really, and it's 2:30 where I'm at, or 3:30 already, and I should be asleep, soundly, and they can't. They have their lives uprooted. So I don't want. I really want to push how important it is to be empathetic of what's going on in Ukraine, of the people, because it's really about people more than the land itself. I think although the land is important, the people are being affected, and so I'm challenging everybody listening to donate $10. And to do that, just go to this link tree. You see the link right on the bottom, linktr.ee/Ukraine aid ops. And you're going to be able to pick your campaign if you want to donate to. Is the $1 million campaign out there?
Yeah, that's the first one that's on there. It's
That's
a
the first one.
1.1 million euro. So that's the biggest one. You can read about it in terms of what it's going to do and how we have it, why it's that amount, and how much of it's going to be going for what. And and like I said earlier, it's not that we're waiting to reach that amount before we start using that money to start purchasing that equipment. It's once we reach a certain amount that we can pay for X amount of sets, we're going to buy those right
Right.
away. You know what I mean? That's just our ultimate goal of what we're trying to reach in that specific campaign.
So
But yeah, you
just
can
real
see
quick.
on the link. You could see all of the ways that you can help. It's a very helpful
Yeah.
link because it really Linktree is cool. It ties in everything, so you can see all of our social medias. You can sign up for our newsletter. We just started a weekly newsletter, so keeping up with Twitter could be nuts sometimes. It's a lot. So sometimes it's easier just to read one email while you're sitting in the bathroom in the morning or something like that. So we can make that happen.
And I mentioned, I just had this idea. So I have been blessed with the ability to create applications for small business. I mean, it's been a slow growth phase. I do other things, and we were also speaking of this Ukraine war. My development all comes out of Ukraine. I had a Ukrainian developer who's worked with me to create a review funnel software, and unfortunately, I lost him because of this war. And I've worked with him for a long time. I've known him for a long time, and he just told me I can't continue with you. I have to send my kids to Romania. Life is crazy, so I've had to put my launch on hold. It's out there. The app is out there. You can go to smbreviewer.com, but I'm gonna give $200, and anybody who matches me and gives $200, I will give you a lifetime license. Just make sure when you donate, when you go to Linktree and you pick your campaign, there's a comment box. just say that you can either say SMB reviewer or you can say like live stream, and that so then we can identify that you watched this live stream. I really, if you've been waiting to donate, this this is the organization to donate to, and hopefully I've been able to highlight that for you. So I just want to give you an incentive that you will get a lifetime professional license to my software. You will also get the professional license to my next software. So if, especially if you're a small business, or even if you're a professional and you want to gain reviews for yourself, or like testimonials for yourself, the software uses an like a funnel process to get video testimonials and review testimonials, whatever your need is. The next software that I'm coming out is going to be for referrals. It'll be referral funnel software. So that's as a big thank you to you for taking the time, being here, donating $200, supporting this great cause. And so make sure in the comments that you say either SMB reviewer, you can say live stream, and that way we can connect it back to this, and I can reward you. Um, but I'm challenging everybody to at least donate $10 to this organization and what they're doing.
I'm gonna, if I can interrupt for 1 second,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
please.
I'm gonna one up it a little bit. So, and for anybody who's watching the live stream, and donates here by, we'll say, because it's good, people are gonna be watching it later. So if you donate by, we'll say today's Thursday here, it's already Friday for you guys. If you guys donate by the end of Friday here in the United States for me, so you have 24 hours to do so, and you either reach out to myself, Ukraine Aid Ops, or your donation. Still, actually, no, reach out to me at
Okay,
AR
let me
UKR
put that up.
JW,
Let me put that up.
or
Oh wait.
uh, so you can so either my Twitter or on the Ukraine Aid Ops Twitter, one of the two. Just send a screenshot of your donation, whether it's the body armor, whether it's PayPal, whether it's um, merchandise from Amazon, whatever it may be, as long as it's at least $10. What I'll do is I'm going to take everybody's names from there. I'm going to run them through a random generator on Saturday at some point, and whoever wins after, I do always do random generator 5 times, so you have the most random chance of winning. You will get a Ukraine Aid Ops patch like the one that's on my hat. It is on hook and loop, so you can hook and loop it to whatever you want, top of your car, wherever, jacket, book bag, wherever you want. So there's only a very, very limited, about like 20 of these in the United States. All the rest of them, actually, no, it's AR UKR.
Yeah.
There's only
ARUK. I got it. I got it. I'm gonna
yep,
fix it.
yep.
I'm gonna fix it right now.
So there's very, very few of these in the U.S. Most of these are going to end up on soldiers in Ukraine. Actually, they should be in Ukraine as of today. But yeah, you have a chance to win one of these if you donate at least $10 of somewhere. Just like I said, screenshot that, and either screenshot that to myself or to the Ukraine Aid Ops account, and I will put your name in the random generator, and somebody will get a patch. This is okay for really, I guess, anybody in the world. If it costs me something to send it there, we'll figure it out. Let's just get help. That's the
So
main thing there.
Alan, is that correct? Twitter.com/AR underscore UKR underscore JW. That you could just reach out to Alan, and like he said, send him a screenshot, and he will enter you in the drawing for this rare patch. Like he said, most of them go to Ukrainian soldiers. There's a reason for that, but here you can have an opportunity if you donate. How much do they need to donate? Any
Like
amount?
I said,
$10?
anybody, yeah. So $10 is the threshold that you set. So as long as you donate either $10 physical of money, or you donate, $10 of items on the Amazon wish list, which I think everything is at least $10 on there. What do you call it? Yeah, I'll enter your name on there. Like I said, just screenshot the Amazon order, but it has to have been done, like I said, during the live stream. So we appreciate everybody that did it, yesterday, or it's going to do it in a week from now. But we'll have something else cool for you guys in the future.
Cool. And my
Somebody
offer
asked if you
stands.
can somebody asked if you can put the Twitter link in the comments there, so they could just click on it, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Good idea. Good idea.
so while you do that, just to name the people you were naming off the list over here, and a kind of a funny story. Actually, when you're done, if you can scroll, I think it's the next photo that you have, the one that was used
Let me see.
by James Vasquez when he was doing
Oh
his
yeah.
interview. So this is a funny photo. So the guy on the right, he is not a ghost. He actually has legs. It's just he was standing in a place that gives away some of the location, so I had to get those blurred out. But so this photo was used by James Vasquez in his interview when he did a pretty interesting, very in-depth YouTube interview. What do you call it? So he brought up this photo, and it was funny because he mentions the people that are in this photo, and he goes, there's Harry P. on the left over there from Ukraine Aid Operations. He mentions Malcolm Nance. He's the gentleman in the middle over there. He mentions Rick Rawlings. That's the very tall guy over there, and in the back also has a great foundation. And then himself, obviously. And then they were asked about the guy on the right, and they said, "Oh, this is this unnamed Canadian volunteer. I'm not supposed to mention any names." And we were looking at his face, and I thought it was really, really funny because I'm looking at this and I go, "That's no Canadian volunteer. That's my father-in-law, Yuri." So it was really funny in the last two slides ago, or last slide, when you said James is the second from the left, and I was like, "Nope, that's Yuri." So I'm like, why does everybody keep confusing him?
Right. Yeah, I mean, just the things I've heard about that your father-in-law, just inspirational. Funny that he's in this picture, but also show you how involved he is in everything going on here. Again, in this photo, this is Harry. Harry's on the left. The next guy, a lot of you guys should know, Malcolm Nance. He used to be a reporter, and he at some point it was all over the news. He's like, these people need help. I'm gonna go help. And he was been in Army intelligence and a lot of different places in the military service. And he's just like, I'm gonna go. And he's on the front lines right now, I believe, and has been for at least a
Um,
month and a half.
I have no idea. I can't speak
Yeah.
on what he's up to in terms of on his day-to-day activities.
Ripley,
There's a lot going on.
or sorry, Rip Rawlings is the guy right next to Malcolm Nance. So he's the guy in the middle, and he's actually somebody we might get on here to interview in maybe a few weeks. We'll see, or maybe somebody from his team. And I think he was a former Army colonel, as far as do you remember?
Um, Yeah, so Lieutenant Colonel, what do you call it,
Lieutenant
Rip
Colonel.
Rawlings. So it's not only does he have a badass name, but he's a badass dude in general.
Yeah,
He's a really cool dude. He's getting a lot done over there. Also, he's really trying to make a big impact. So I
right.
respect everybody that's out there that's trying to help. You know what I mean? We meet people, and it's interesting because even from what I understand of how this meeting was put together, everybody's skeptical of everybody. You know what I mean? You don't know who
Right.
these people are. It's a war
Absolutely.
zone. You don't know what people's intentions are. So, but it's great when you do meet, and you know what I mean. But it's a beer and some cigarettes. You know what I mean. That's the best way for an introduction.
Alan, I want to be conscious of your time because I know you're
Sure.
staying with us a little bit over. Is If you need to head out, it's cool. I understand. We actually going for about 15, 20 minutes longer than we had planned. Do you want to say anything, or if you got to head out, if you can stay a few minutes more, that's cool too. Um,
So somebody asked on the presentation if we're based out of Canada or US. So yeah, we have members both in the US and Canada. We have 40 members. Here, I guess I'll give you my little closing end statement before I head out of here. So again, Ukraine Aid Operations is a team, an all volunteer team of people all over the world from all different backgrounds, all have different things that are going on in their daily lives, that all realize that, okay, hey, we want to help save lives in Ukraine. How can we do it? What can we do together to help? And that's kind of how it started snowballing. But in terms of where we are in the world, like I said earlier, every continent except Antarctica. But I'm sure there's a penguin up there that wants to join.
um, Great, awesome. If you need to head out, don't feel free. I mean, I'm so grateful, Alan, not just for being here, but But just again, I mentioned this earlier, midway in the presentation. Alan is treating this like his baby. He is spending 40 to 60 hours on top of his job. And, originally I had planned to speak to Harry. And after meeting Alan, I'm like, whoa, this guy is awesome. He's legit. And it's been a big blessing to speak to you, Alan, and to have
Sure.
this. And glad it, and I hope, if you were doubtful before, that you have some confidence in what these guys are doing. And we talked a lot at length, but you can obviously reach out to Alan. His Twitter is below. He lives in South Florida. He is in this to win this, and I'm sure he's happy to answer any questions you guys may have. Just reach out to him personally. And Alan, if you got to go, feel free to head out. I'm just gonna just wrap up
Cool.
the
Yeah, for sure.
presentation.
I'm just gonna. I'll watch the presentation. The only reason I got to go is, I mean, I've been out all day today getting stuff done. I didn't have any breakfast. We had Taco Bell on the road because we were running late to a meeting to look at thermal optics. So I've been out in the heat with no food and lack of water all
You,
day. So I got to get
you,
some nutrition in my body. That's where I
Alan,
got to
if you, I'm just gonna kind of wrap up this photo, and
go.
if you just want to just grab something to eat and come back, you can do that too,
Yeah,
or grab something to drink.
I'm gonna mute myself and blank myself out here for a few minutes, but I'll be here in spirit watching you.
Okay, sounds good. Guys, so let me know how that was for you. I mean, this is the first time we've done this. I am actually not a part of this organization. I have my own organization. I didn't really get into it in the beginning. Alan just started going, and I'm just like, just go for it, Alan. Um, I mentioned at the beginning that, after we had left the Soviet Union, my family was refugees for 10 years. None of us really wanted to go back to Ukraine. I always didn't grow up with the happiest thoughts of Ukraine. But the Soviet Ukraine that I knew is not the same Ukraine as today. Ukraine is making their own identity. Ukraine it wants to be Ukraine. They don't want to be Russia, part of Russia, or have anything to do with Russia anymore. Obviously, a lot of Ukrainians speak Russian. There's a Russian component, but this war and the war that started 8 years ago has changed all that. And I know plenty of Ukrainians myself, both in the States and in Ukraine, and amazing people, amazing, amazing. And as I mentioned at the beginning, with a Pew Research study, there's it's insulting to say that this country is a Nazi country, especially Russia. Of all countries calling this country a Nazi country, Russia should not be doing that. I wanted to close out because I mentioned it was very important for me to verify this organization. So we mentioned Harry, we mentioned Malcolm Nance. Malcolm Nance is the black guy second to the left. Rick Rawlings is the guy in the center, the tall guy, former lieutenant colonel. All these guys um, are former military, all U.S. military except for Harry. Harry's Estonian military. I don't know. The guy on the right is Alan's father-in-law, his wife's father, and I don't know if he has military experience, but he's a huge patriot of Ukraine, and also American citizen. James, the guy that you see closest in the sunglasses, he was part of a unit for about a month and a half, and he retired from the army, and he came back to the States. He had a ticket, and they are selling their house, right? I think they already sold it. They sold their house and are moving to Ukraine. He plans to rejoin the unit, and he wants to spend his future rebuilding Ukraine. It is this grassroots love why Ukraine will succeed, why Ukraine will flourish. Yeah, the more and more that I speak to people in Ukraine ADOPS or related to Ukraine ADOPS, some of these soldiers, I'm in awe. And with that energy in there, I believe I am full heartedly will believe that despite the struggles, despite whatever you hear in Severodonetsk right now, that the Ukrainian army and the volunteer soldiers are taking a beating, whatever, they will succeed in the long term, because the energy that's coming into this is God sent. It's miracle work. So I hope, again, if you have any questions, reach out. Here's Alan's Twitter. You can reach out to him directly, and I know he'll be happy. If you have any questions, I can relay them to Alan. I have Alan's phone number. He can't run away from me. I just want to recap before we end. Alan's still trying to get something to eat, but we're just going to end this call anyway, or end this presentation. If you donate
I'll
$10
say
during the
goodbye. I was sitting
okay.
here eating the whole time just listening to your spiel. No, my wife. Luckily, I have my lovely Ukrainian wife that brought me dinner over here because I've been here
Yeah.
for a little while. So no,
Is it
I've
borscht?
been no. It's actually I'm pretty much eating breakfast for dinner since
Okay.
it was all on the fly. So no, nothing too fancy. Although she does make some really, really, really good borscht. So that's one of my favorite things. That's one thing I miss about going to Ukraine. We're so looking forward to going there this summer
Absolutely.
before the off. It's such an amazing place to visit. So going like you were saying earlier, your family, like you came as a refugee from there. So I mean, I was born here in the U.S., but my parents came here as teenagers as refugees here from the Soviet Union, and grew up here. So they kind of had a very similar idea of like they didn't want it. Like when I first, and our parents know each other, but they didn't like they almost were scared of us going to Ukraine because they're like, oh my god, like no, you guys are gonna get like kidnapped, like you're an American, like you're gonna get like somebody's gonna rip you off. And it's like, what are you talking about? So they ended up going with us because they were so scared, and they loved it. So they ended up going back every time that we went. My parents came just because they love going there now. You know what I mean? So it is such an amazing place. I mean, in the last 31 years since it's been this current modern Ukraine, um, it's really flourished. A lot more so than many other places in the world at the rate that it has, with a sense of pride. And I think that Russia is using that as they're turning nationalism into Nazism, and it's a very thing. You know what I mean? And Ukrainian nationalism is different than anywhere else, really, and it's important to be proud of your country. You shouldn't think that it's the only country in the world, but you should be proud of where you're from. Especially for the people that are in Ukraine right now, you have to think about it this way: the younger politicians, the people that are just getting into politics now, the people that are, going to be really the driving force of this country. This new Ukraine is all they know. The very tail end of the Soviet Union, or in this new Ukraine, so that's all they know. By the time they were in school, it was Ukraine. You know what I mean? So this Soviet Union mentality was never pushed on them. So to tell it into Russia because it's been part of Russia, that even that generation that was part of Russia, even if there's them that support Russian values or whatever it may be, or being a part of Russia, that's not the drive. It's been Ukraine. They don't know anything different. So how can you try and tell these generations of people now that are adults, young adults, many with their own families, that no, you're not Ukraine, you're it's all one Russian identity. You know what I mean? So that's the big driving force there.
Yeah. Um, the last thing I just wanted to maybe mention is if you want to continue with me, our group is no longer about a no-fly zone for obvious reasons. I was going to mention this before. Now, we see that it's either about arming Ukraine or not. So if you want to join, the goal is to have 1 million Americans for arming Ukraine. This is separate, complete, has nothing to do with Ukraine aid ops. They have their own thing. My thing is to push politicians to keep supporting Ukraine. You can join me at facebook.com/groups/no-fly zone. Um, and and we're gonna keep up the good fight, and Alan is gonna keep hustling, and props to Alan, dude, for all that you do. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a comment or a chat and let us know how this was for you. Was it too boring? Was it good? Was it informative? Could it have been different? It's okay. All feedback is good. Just don't be a dick about it. But just positive feedback is good. In terms of, or constructive feedback is good. And Alan, any last words?
No, just thank you for everybody who's been a supporter of Ukraine Aid Operations. Thank you to everybody who's a part of the organization, affiliated with the
Yeah,
organization, vendors that have been helping us, suppliers, shippers, whatever it may be. Huge thank you to you, Vic, for setting this up and for having this, for helping spread the word. And most of all, thank you to all of our supporters and donors. Without you guys, I mean, like I said earlier, we would be 40 random people from around the world trying to pocket our own money together, which really wouldn't have anywhere near the impact of what it's having now. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of people out there helping. We meet individuals that are just bringing. They're like, oh yeah, we've been bringing suitcases ourselves over into Ukraine, but how can we help make a bigger impact? You know what I mean?
right.
So there's a lot of people looking to help, but it's a huge thank you, like I said, to everybody that's been supporting us, continuing to support us. And like I said earlier, once the war is over, there's still going to be a lot of need for help. It's not like it's just over and that's it. It's not a boxing match. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? It's going to be a long-term thing. And then, even the security of Ukraine, it's not like getting into a fight with somebody and then you can, it's not your ex that you can move away from. At the end of the day, Ukraine and Russia are going to have to share a border for, the rest of history. And there's going to be people that have, family on both sides. And, there's always going to be some kind of ties to these two places that share a border. It's inevitable. You know what I mean? When you share a border with a country, that you're going to have some kind of relations with them. But the security is going to be important. How do we prevent this from ever happening again? Because if it doesn't end a certain way, then it can always happen again. What's to stop Russia from doing it again? So yeah, huge thank you to our supporters, and a huge thank you to the people of Ukraine. They're fighting for democracy right now to an extent. They
yeah,
have the support of the world behind them. But support is only there if you continue to help. You know what I mean? If you turn a blind eye, if everybody just says, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Everybody would think that way, and nobody would do anything. So continue to support, continue to help, continue to be vigilant. Be careful where you're getting your information from. There's a lot of misinformation out
yeah,
there. The Russian propaganda machine is great. It's great at getting into the minds and medias of other countries outside of there. So take everything with a grain of salt. As weird as it seems, Twitter is probably one of the best resources because
yeah,
if it's not real, people get called out on it really quickly. There's people that are very, very smart and very talented that'll call people out on their BS very quickly. So that's honestly one of the best places to get your information from, because like I can watch things on, like you said, you catch snippets of Russian media and just have being able to speak Russian, I'll listen to what they say and it's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? How can this be true? So be vigilant of what you're listening and where you're getting your information from.
yeah. I
And
agree
Slava
with
Ukraini.
everything. What's that?
Said in Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini. Yeah, awesome. Uh, so again, just last push. Please donate $10 if that's what you can spare. Very appreciated. And thank you again, Alan. Thank you to your team.
Thank you.
And hope we can do this again in the future. And wishing everybody a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Vic. You have a good one. Good Shabbos too. Thank you.
Bye bye.